flu game 2.0 for me. I'm like Michael Jordan and LeBron James all wrapped into one, but I finished the books that I carry around. Guys, we got to jump in. First things first, Saquon Barkley, new precedent set, reset the market for running backs with the new contract after winning the Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley, 2-year extension worth $41.2 million, $36 million guaranteed, and this beats out the previous record for running backs. Guys, thoughts on this? Premature, too much, or just right?
I want to say this is premature, but it's hard to make that claim, especially when he had the year that he did, record breaking across the board, as you were talking about, and coming home with the Super Bowl win. Yeah. The dude earned it, so he should probably be the one to set the market.
I just wonder though, where does it end with resetting the markets? I mean, we just continue every single year, it seems, whether it be quarterback or now running back. And don't get me wrong, I for sure think Saquon deserves this, and I think it's a really smart move on the Eagles' part to take care of this. He's a fan favorite. They're essentially doing the exact opposite of what the New York Giants did in securing this franchise player, this who's so beloved around the city. But there are some concessions that need to be made in Philadelphia, which is to be expected with a team that wins the Super Bowl, but they're having to let go of some other players here because of these big contracts. Darius Slay, for example, one of the best cornerbacks in Eagles history. He got cut this past week. So that's the only thing that, I just wonder about is, okay, they're moving a little bit too early. I mean, free agency hasn't really even started.
I think they're overcompensating for the mistakes the Giants made. They don't want to let Saquon slip and be like that GM who didn't listen to his son. Also, I think this kind of payment for running backs is long overdue. Running backs now, they're receivers and rushing. They're dual threats, and the fact that they haven't been compensated, like there was that big thing a couple of years ago about how underpaid running backs are, and now Saquon's helping re-break that, and people are looking at it. And look, it's a 2-year deal. It's not like they're doing these long deals because running back is a heavy position where you're going to get a lot of wear and tear on your body, and that's what the GMs are worried about. So this is a fair deal that resets the market for running backs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think there's an element here. It doesn't always need to reset the market for running backs who aren't of the same caliber, right? So you have the Christian McCaffreys, you have the Saquon Barkleys, you have guys of that nature that do something that's far beyond what the general running back, or at least historically, has done. So I think those certain guys are the ones that can really step outside of the quote unquote market of a specific position and probably should get paid. Sure. There are certain guys that are deserving of massive paychecks, but I don't think it should necessarily raise the level of guys who may be middling.
Yeah, no, I'm with you right there. Like he's clearly an outlier here. And so I guess we shouldn't even say that he's kind of resetting the running back market. I mean, also you look at like this draft isn't great by any means, but it does have a pretty strong running back class. Yeah. And we've seen this trend over the last few years of franchises kind of finding that running back production in the aggregate, as Jonah Hill in Moneyball says. Like instead of having just this single star, and they have a handful of backs that they can rotate in. But when you have a guy like Saquon, who's so versatile, who was just such a perfect electric shock to that offense and really sent them over the top to have this Super Bowl winning season, then I'm for it. And I think he absolutely deserves this. Also, he just seems like such a great guy, like off the field as well. Like forget what he does on the field. Seems like he's a great team guy, great locker room guy. The city absolutely loves him. Philadelphia fans, they're like pretty aggressive. If they're rallying around somebody, you gotta take that. And so I am pro this, and I think he completely deserves it.
Personality wise, in terms of deserving it, it's the complete opposite of Cam Newton's behavior. Like off the field. This is a guy you need to promote Saquon. This is a standard kids look up to, not that Cam Newton antics.
So Cam Newton actually negotiated his contract, and the team actually dropped him about $5 million a year for personality issues.
Personality, character flaws. Yeah.
The personality, fine. Okay, so we're with that. We're on Saquon's side right here. But the other concern I have is with some of those other players on the Eagles, Zach Bond in particular. And I know you guys don't necessarily really want to talk about a linebacker. I do. Okay, this guy was the steal of the year coming from St. Louis last year. 1-year deal, $3 million. Best defensive most productive defensive player in the NFL this past season, or one of them. Apparently, there's a good handful of teams that are really high on him and trying to go after him. Now, this is a funny tweet right here of somebody saying Broncos fans wanted to give Zach Bond a bag after an outlier miraculous season behind one of the greatest defensive fronts ever assembled. And it's using one of these iconic meme formats here. What do you think about this sort of accusation or throwing a little shade at Zach Bond?
I know Zach has done an incredible job, especially in this past year, but I think there is a difference between an offensive producer and a defensive stalwart player like Bond. I think he's going to need to probably have another 2 or 3 years under his belt to really prove it. Saquon has come in and produced ever since the beginning, and he did it even on a garbage team and at an organization such as the Giants. Like there is some what do you call it, prejudice toward defensive players, and I think there needs to be production, at least 2 years of production. I know I always bring up the rule of 3, so I would probably expand that to 3 years of solid play before you give him a bag.
Interesting. So you think that a defensive player needs 2 years, but an offensive player deserves it after 1 year?
Yeah, I would say I actually ballooned it up to 3 for defensive playes.
Oh, dude,
but an offensive player has 1 good year and they deserve, like if a receiver has $1,000 a year, all of a sudden they deserve a big bump. You think?
I would say from a business perspective, it's something that they have to take into account. Like Zach, again, incredible year, but he's had 1 under his belt. He's finally taken that next step in his career. I would say give it another year or 2 before you actually dole out that kind of cash. Whereas, again, Saquon has proven it even at a bad organization that he is top notch.
I think that there's some fairness there. I mean, you look at all the other elements and factors of play with Zach Bond having this season with that defensive front, with Vic Fangio, with all of the pieces around him as well. And it's like as a linebacker that played previously behind a good front and a not so good front, granted at a much lower level, it makes the entire world of difference. If you've got a great defensive line core unit right there that keeps blockers, keeps offensive linemen off you from getting second level, and just allows a linebacker to run freely, which is basically what we saw a ton of Zach Bond doing this year. He just got to be a headhunter, just shooting through gaps. Not to take away from his kind of block destruction ability, but that does play into it.
Yeah, look, I hate taking this side of things, the business side of things, and siding with the front offices and such, because I honestly want to see players get paid. And you asked about where is the ceiling to setting the markets, because it seemingly continues to happen. It's like, well, the business of the NFL just continues to go up and up. Eyeballs continue to attach to it, and TV deals are coming into it, marketing deals and everything. So they should get a cut of this, and that price should go up and up, because I think the cap now just increased to about $280 million per year this year, which is nuts. So like, yeah, let the players get paid for sure. I'm trying to temper it a little bit, because like not everybody deserves to be a record setting or market setting guy just after 1 year. You know, it's just like, it's the same thing of like crowning dudes too soon. Let's pump the brakes.
Scott is our resident let's pump the brakes guy. Let's wait and see how it all plays out guy. Very, 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 very reliable. Professional.
Well, okay. I'd also say this too, like, in this cuts against my argument, but to your point about having a great front, and Zach Bond had one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, like bar none. So did Saquon. He had the best offensive line in the league by far. So like there is a little bit of a caveat there as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I didn't put it up here on our script here, but there was kind of a document or some data that came out.
This isn't scripted, Nick. This is organic, natural.
That's not your line. That's not your line. Make it again. But of kind of they created sort of a coefficient for the amount of help that an offense has. And I wish I could, maybe I'll try and pull it up here in a second. But basically what it implies, which is so obvious, is that a lot of the top teams or a lot of the top performers, you know, in the backfield, be it running back or quarterback, well, they're benefiting from really good offensive line play and a really good pass game as well to sort of balance things out. So while we're talking about all of this, like contract stuff, caps, let's also, we got to touch on Devontae Adams. He got released by the Jets. Not very surprising. But Scott, will you throw that up and then this that says the disparity here? Because there's a lot of speculation on where Devontae Adams will go. Obviously, one of the best wide receivers in the last 10 years, getting up there, but he still has value to offer. But the Jets are saving nearly $30 million in salary cap space. It's crazy to see what a disaster the Green Bay Jets happened to be for this franchise. All those guys coming from Green Bay and just blowing up the franchise. So this shows here the highest paid wide receiver room in the NFL and the lowest paid wide receiver room in the NFL. The Seahawks at damn near 70 million to their wide receivers, and the Chargers at 10 million. That's a pretty young wide receiver room. I like the idea of Devontae Adams going to the Chargers. I mean, this is the lowest paid wide receiver room right now, so they've got the space. They've also just offensively not spent so much money. I would love to see him with Justin Herbert down there in LA in the sunshine. What do you think about that?
I love that offensive fit. I think that would be an incredible addition to their team. I think the issue is right now is the Chargers are in a predicament right now because they have to recalibrate and re-sign Bosa and Khalil Mack. So I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out. And Harbaugh was on the Pat McAfee show last week during the combine and talking about how, I want pay the guy, meaning Khalil Mack. So while I find that to be an enticing landing spot, I don't know if they have the ability, but they may have to just make hard decisions and lose Bosa and or Mack or both in order to capture somebody like Devonta.
I know that's what's so interesting is seeing actually all of this front office stuff that comes into play to putting football teams on the field. And it's kind of all behind the scenes. You don't see that when you're watching the games in season, but it's interesting. The Chargers spent the most money in the NFL on their edge position at $54 million with those two dudes. It's super interesting to look at which teams spend the most money in this most spots. Who do you think spends the most money on defense, you guys?
49ers.
That's a good guess.
It's a good guess.
Yeah, they got some good D linemen, high contract.
They spend the most money on linebackers specifically, and they are in the top 10 of defensive spending.
That's definitely
Eagles?
Coming from.
They are actually lower than Eagles are second to last on defensive spending. That's crazy.
Oh, okay, so that kind of changes the calculus and when we're talking about Zach Bond.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, that's crazy. I did not expect that. Oh, you want me to tell you? I mean, you guys are going to kick yourself. It's the most obvious. It's the most obvious answer in the world.
Steelers.
Good. It's the Steelers.
Yeah.
They spend the most on defense, and they spend the least on offense. They spend the most on defense.
That sounds right.
By far. It's they spend 160 million on defense, and then on offense they spend 57 million. Completely disproportionate, out of whack. What were you gonna say, Mike?
Going back to your point about the difference in spending, Chargers versus Seahawks. Okay, looking to how that actually correlates to their total receiving yards for the season. Seattle had 2,900 total receiving yards, and the Chargers had 3,700 total receiving yards. So it's interesting to see how much money spent versus what's your actual output.
That's why good GMs are so valuable. That's why the Eagles, being able to spend less than other teams, then have one of the best defenses. It is the secret code in the NFL.
Yeah, and to be frank too, I know we've kind of poo-pooed on the draft and how it's it's an imprecise science, all that kind of stuff. The GMs do matter in this regard because you got a guy like Ladd McConkey coming in and absolutely destroying it as a rookie here this past year for Herbert and the offense on the Chargers side. So he overproduced for what his probably draft stock was. So being able to have the eye and the scouting room to pinpoint those dudes is absolutely crucial for things like this.
Speaking
of path for GMs, what's the typical path to becoming a GM? Is it through coaching? Is it through scout?
It's more the latter. Yeah, it's more the latter. The tree comes from like you usually earn your stripes in the scouting department first and foremost.
Yeah.
And that's all going to start shifting because I think we talked about this before, but now that the college NIL era and big time college programs are starting to set their situations up and their organizations up similar to NFL programs, we're going to have far bigger pipeline than just like the NFL scouting realm, because they'll be able to prove themselves in a lower level to then elevate or jump up to the next. But yeah, historically, it's just been through the scouting departments.
That's going to be wild to see college GMs popping up here and who like if guys make the jump from college GM to NFL GM just from having college experience. If we'll see that in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, it's interesting too because you got a lot of the guys, the GMs and the experience that they've gotten in the NFL, and maybe it didn't work out. Like it gives them a second chance to go ahead and recalibrate, redevelop, re-elevate. Because usually it's like, once you lose a GM job in the NFL, it's very, very difficult to get another one or a second chance.
Well, Joe Shane from the New York Giants is going to find that out pretty quickly.
Dude, do you think it's harder to bounce back as a bad season GM versus bad season head coach? Like, do you think it's harder to get a second chance?
So many coaches who have bounced back, who've had I won't say terrible, but bad head coaching seasons and then getting other opportunities. I think that being a coach, bouncing back as a coach is easier than GM. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree because there is that safety net of there are so many other position coaching options on even if we're just talking about the NFL, like there are 64 coordinator positions, depending on how it's made up, roughly 64. You could fall back to that and then have a good couple of years and then get another head coaching job and just chalk it up to not having developed soon enough and so on and so forth. So there are more opportunities to fall back on if you have a poor first stint in head coaching.
And then you can always go to Europe if you fail in the NFL.
Or college.
Or college. We're getting a lot of, we got a couple guys in the ELF who are like kind of bigger time former NFL head coaches who are now bouncing out here to Europe.
It's crazy that we haven't covered this yet because it's definitely in our wheelhouse. We've been talking about Duval and how Liam Cohen is 38, 39, super young dude. The Jaguars and their front office just hired a 34-year-old GM.
I saw that.
34.
I thought that was a prank at first. I thought they were like, somebody
like he's 12.
Yeah. Also, like I don't want to be ageist, but I ageist, and I was not that impressed. I feel like if you're getting that job at 34 or early 30s, you have to have the energy and aura of Sean McVay, which I did not get that feeling from their new GM.
He must have been playing a lot of Madden career mode.
He got the head coach game back in the day that came out.
He showed him his Madden stats.
This is the new way people do jobs. Wow.
No, it's crazy. Like, look, I thought he was well spoken and everything like that. It's just it was so jarring to see a kid literally, well, not literally, but a kid in comparison to others in the league being at the helm and talking. I thought it was a prank.
I thought it was one of these fake accounts like NBA Sentinel that just like, they got this dorky head coach Duval and then his twin at GM. No, but he wasn't. The content of what he said wasn't so bad. It was just the vibe, the aura. Also, it's just a little bit young for me. We'll see. Maybe they prove us wrong. Speaking of NFL GMs, we do have to hit on this. That I know we've hit on Shedeur Sanders quite a bit, but he's making ripples again because this past weekend at the NFL Combine, there's a story that came out that Shedeur Sanders came across as brash and arrogant to a quarterback coach from an unnamed team. So then this is kind of splitting some people. And I'm seeing a lot of either way. I'm seeing a lot of people coming to the defense of Shedeur Sanders. I'm seeing a lot of people attacking Shedeur Sanders from the story that's come out. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
The decision not to participate could show the fact that he is uber confident. Some GMs and organizations may be attracted to that, and others may be turned off because it's like, hey, again, this is another opportunity to compete. And Harbaugh's even said this. He doesn't like the trend of guys not participating in the combine because it's like, if you're a competitor and you have an opportunity to compete, you take that. And that's when you prove your love for ball. And I understand that's a little hard to hear from a coach who has, other incentives and so on and so forth. But, there's an element of truth in that. And I think this is kind of hitting it right here. There's clearly a bravado that he brings because he's a quarterback and needs it. And not everybody's going to jive with that.
I wonder if arrogance is going too far, and the way that he is coming across for some of these people is that he's just very confident. Look, his dad is one of the cockiest, but kind of in a positive way, most confident athletes that we have had in the last few generations, not just in the United States, but in the entire world. That's his dad, and he's grown up in the spotlight. He's grown up very wealthy. He's grown up very successful. He's made NIL money. He's already a rich kid at this young age, and he's being talked about as one of the top prospects here. I wonder if then just his confidence is coming across, or people are misinterpreting that as arrogant.
Yeah, for sure. It's because look, for as confident and as outspoken as Deion Sanders is, there is undeniably he backs it up. He was an insane athlete and never showed any sort of like faltering in that regard. So it's like, okay, man, you're that good. You earned the ability to talk like that and be like that. But to a certain extent, it's like, okay, cart before the horse. And a lot of times, even when you haven't had the opportunity to prove it, like Shedeur, I mean, he's done it in college, but he hasn't gone to the NFL level. Like, you still need to have that sort of confidence when you're entering into a new realm in order to like convince yourself that you can do this. It's all part of just the mental game as well for him personally, as it is when he goes and talks to these people. So it's an interesting situation here, but if anybody can do it, I think Shedeur can back it up.
What do you guys think?
Also, for sitting out, if you're sitting out the combine, you better be really confident. You can't be all humble and kind of insecure. This guy's so insecure, and he didn't participate. This isn't looking good.
That would not match up. What's your guys' take on the backwards hat at the podium?
It's a plus.
Oh,
screams Deion.
Okay.
Honestly, like it was a non-factor for me. I didn't even see it when I first looked at it. But I know Colin Cowherd is probably screaming to high heaven.
Oh, he's freaking out for sure about this. Although he's been pretty high on Shedeur. Will you throw this up, Scott? The thing that says thoughts underneath. It's just a little 1-minute clip of Shedeur speaking last week, and I want to get your guys' take on how he comes across.
It's a day-by-day process. My most important thing right now is just getting better every day, getting stronger, getting in more shape. That's the only thing I'm focused on right now, and I'm just ready to get to the team.
You stand in the pocket, you want to make throws, you don't give a damn if you're about to get hit. Growing up, who do you model your game after? Who did you watch?
Tom Brady.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm able to see what he has done and mentally how he was able to beat people with the mind. So it's physically. That's why he was able to play to the year he was able to play. I see what he's doing. Okay, I add this to the game, and that's why I know I'm not at my best product yet. I'm nowhere near where I need to be and where I want to be and where I desire to be, because it's certain things going into the offseason you have to work on, you have to grow at, you have to be able to indulge in one step at a time. To be able to just debrief and decompress and everything, it was Mike Vick. He's somebody that I talk to because he knows the ups, the downs, and everything about this game. So I'm able to have a conversation with him, and he's able to give me all the insight and the knowledge that he has, that where he did good, where he went wrong, on how he should have did this. So that's why I'm thankful to have a mentor like him also.
It's one thing, like in your game, you look at to go.
I mean, I like those too. I mean, I also think he's pretty close with Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady has kind of been mentoring him throughout this process here. I like that he picked Brady as kind of the guy that he looks up to game-wise. But what do you guys think? How did he come across?
I didn't think that was really arrogant at all. I just think he's sure of himself. He understands the inputs and what it takes to be successful in the NFL. He's Deion's son. He's connected with all these NFL guys, these NFL greats. He gets advice. He understands the mental side of the game and the mental side of what it takes to have a long career. And he doesn't need anyone's approval. He knows what the inputs are, and he's confident that he's going to put them in. I don't think this is arrogant, really. I think this is consistent with how he grew up and kind of his athleticism that he can back up.
Yeah. I like how he came across here. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, this is exactly what I think most people see Shedeur as, especially those who have played the game and they've heard him talk before. I mean, obviously, a lot of the stuff that goes around on social media about Shedeur is the watch showing and all that kind of like celebration stuff and the glitz and the glam and everything like that. But clearly, this guy has the mindset and the right approach. He realizes that he hasn't reached the pinnacle and is still fighting for it. And the fact that, in his gameplay, we even saw it and how durable he was and how tough he was going through not just last year, but the year prior specifically, and how he was just taking an absolute beating from a garbage offensive line and just how porous it was, but still got up and performed and competed. Like, I thought that showed incredible grit and determination. And he just articulated it here is like, that's who I looked up to, because we all saw Tom Brady do the exact same thing in a different era of the NFL, a little more aggressive era, or at least defensive freedom era. So like, I love it. And, I don't know if this is the kind of stuff that those leaks and rumors were speaking to, because clearly this isn't arrogant. I agree with Mikey. This is confidence, and also there's an element of humility, and he spoke to it right there, which is great and what you want in a leader.
I think he comes across great here. And actually, I like what you said there. I mean, we touched on, I think, a couple of episodes ago about how he had to deal with adversity in college. Granted, he did have a couple comments about his offensive line at press conference after games. Not great, but he dealt with, I can't remember the stat, but I think that he was one of the most pressured or most sacked quarterbacks in the power conferences. And so to deal with also having not a good run game to go with it. So he was dealing with that adversity. All right. There's more woes in Texas. Throw that up there, Scott. After all of the possible bad things that could happen to an organization, trading away their face and franchise player, the new guy they traded for getting hurt right away in AD, Kyrie, their other top player, tears his ACL and is going to be out for the season. Couple this with their ticket prices dropping by like 40%. People calling for the firing of the GM. Not good in Dallas. They're in shambles. Thoughts on this?
We've all been talking about this, us included on this show, about like the lack of toughness or seeming lack of toughness in the NBA. And at least this shows a modicum of that. And, he's a competitor at heart and always has been. And I would say he's cut from that, the back end of that cloth of toughness in the NBA. And I'm glad he's like showing this grit and determination to just go out there and shoot those two free throws at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. It's like when Kobe tore his Achilles and then made those 2 free throws before he walked off. I mean, like that, seeing that in basketball gives me hope.
There's a glimmer of hope. Mikey, that's what I want to ask you. You've torn your ACL. Like, what does that feel like? How hard is that to shoot a free throw? I mean, is it okay that he's just standing? Or like what? How bad is that?
I mean, mentally, that shows a lot of toughness. Physically, it's not that hard to shoot a free throw with no ACL. But when you tear your ACL, it's like, for me, it's the worst feeling in the world. And seeing guys do it, it's like 2 years of your life gone. So that year of leading up in that season, wasted, nothing. The next year, gone, rehab. So 2 years of your life are gone in one moment, and you have to accept that. And I see the toughest guys, at Oregon State, when they tear the ACL, they hear it just weeping, like grown men just weeping. And it's because your whole life, your whole vision for your life and everything you work for is derailed. And you have to just rebuild from scratch. And so it's like a gut-wrenching thing. And it's much easier when you're actually in the NFL or in the NBA and you have money coming in, like you have all the support. But like when you're somebody in college who's on the rise and trying to get to that level where you're secure, it's a gut-wrenching thing. And for me, like the pain wasn't bad, and I knew right away. It was just like you're in shock, and I go, this is bad. And I just immediately went to hold it and got up and started trying to walk off. And mine was so bad that I had to sign a waiver so that they could use the film of it to teach med school students, because what they called it an unhappy triad. So it was ACL, MCL, like PCL, and my meniscus, and like a couple other things. So I did like a total blowout.
But how did you do this? Was it a contact or was it open field? Like, how did that?
It was contact. It was stupid spring ball, this drill that Jake Cookus comes up with, our special teams coordinator. It's called fly zone. It's supposed to mimic. Everyone has to do it in spring ball, so you have to get a certain amount of reps, and so it's called fly zone, and it mimics like kickoff return. And so you have one guy rushing down, one guy trying to block, and the guy I went against was losing the rep because I was getting past him, and he grabs me and twists me to try to win the rep because we're within these cones, and my left knee just blows out completely, and it was horrible.
That's infuriating.
Oh, I was so mad.
And
the guy came up and like apologized after and all that stuff. But coming back from an ACL, like the rehab it takes to come back from an ACL makes you such a better athlete because it's all single leg working. That's why guys come back way faster, way better body control because you're working single leg everything stability. And after I did that, I literally came back 2 miles an hour faster after my rehab was a much better athlete, much better body control.
Crazy. Yeah. Didn't Saquon tear his ACL a couple of years ago too? I thought he did, didn't he? That's wild. The mental aspect of those types of injuries. Also, just goes to show special teams drills, any sort of indie drills, I'm so vehemently against. Football practice should be Skelly and team. That's it.
Yes. I never did special teams drills ever again after that.
Oh, dude, yeah. I don't know if you have any animosity toward that guy any longer. I mean, it could be lingering, and that's natural because, that's
he's a good guy. He's just trying to win the rep.
Sounds like a rep.
It's tough because in a lot of those situations, especially in spring ball, you get a lot of world beaters and guys who, as you were saying, are trying to find a spot on the roster and trying to make their way. And it's such an interesting situation as we were talking to last episode and in organizations or teams like the Nebraska Cornhuskers getting rid of the spring game and everything like that, because that's part of the element of things and keeping guys healthy. But one of the things I did want to ask is, it sounds like this is, even though it's a grueling recovery and it's a terrible physical injury, it sounds like it's much, much, much more so a mental and psychological injury in the moment immediately, as opposed to like pain.
Completely. Like pain wise, it was fine. It's just your knee's loose and dangling. But like it just feels weird. It's not like excruciating pain. Achilles is excruciating pain, but ACL, at least for me, wasn't excruciating.
Achilles,
it's just more mental than anything.
Yeah, that's why it's very, very impressive that Kyrie made those free throws, because free throws are essentially 90% mental anyway. And so he's got these torn ACL mentality right there. And
that's probably tough for him too, because he's not a spring chicken. He's getting up there in age too. So this recovery is going to take a lot out of him.
I feel bad for him because he was annoyed. He was kind of noisy off the court in previous years, making headlines for kind of silly things. But since he's come to Dallas, it feels like he's been pretty buttoned up. He's been an adult. He's been a professional and had no noise off the court. And it feels like, he's playing good basketball. And so I feel especially bad for him, guys.
As former athletes, we all feel it, Mikey, especially because he actually experienced it. But we all know that it's like one play away from literally your entire career either being blown away or combusting into dust.
Yeah,
I think the hardest part for these guys is when they are healed and they're back playing, is getting that out of your mind mentally and trusting your knee. And like that was something for me, is like getting it back, because like once your knee's strong enough, it's strong enough, you're good. But actually trusting it is a whole nother part of the process.
Especially in contact, I can imagine. Like it's different if you're cutting and everything like that. That's one battle to get over mentally, but like engaging and remaining like strong and
one of the best things I would sit in the normal type boots and I'd visualize just making cuts and like visualize blood flowing to my knee and healing every single day. And like I came back so fast, like comparably to other guys that ACLs. So it's like it's a really good, beautiful mental challenge, like ACL recovery. It's incredible.
Okay, good. We're hoping Kyrie has a good mental recovery as well as physical recovery. And I never had an ACL. I had just the MCL, and that was bad enough. And it's like,
well, you didn't do the rehab, Nick.
No.
I could have cured it in a week.
I went to multiple doctors across Europe, and they were all baffled at what happens to this MCL. It's a medical anomaly. Nobody knows.
Doctors don't know how to fix things. They know how to treat things. The trainers didn't know how to cure an ACL. They just had little exercises. You do the research, and you figure out how your knee works, and you can come up with your exercises.
It's just triage.
Do it now.
That's all they're good for. Yeah. No, I tore my meniscus, and that was it. And like that, even though everybody's like, "Oh, you'll be back in 4 weeks," it's like, not really. And then it all varies, and I can only imagine the mental struggle, because even with a meniscus, it was like, dang, dude, I don't trust my knee anymore.
But that is one of the beautiful things about sports, is like that adversity that you get with injuries, no matter how much they suck, is getting that mental toughness and then being able to apply that into life after sports. But yeah, the Mavericks are just in a terrible situation. And throw this up, it's kind of funny, Scott. It's biblical in Dallas here. There is some sort of curse on the Dallas Mavericks. This is a biblical plague, and this is what Dallas looks like right now. They traded Luka and got hit with the 10 plagues of Egypt. So God is not happy with Nico Harrison.
Brought it upon themselves.
Yeah, they brought it upon themselves, and they're not good. They're not doing well. But on a positive side of things, the Lakers, after finessing the Mavs, they're on. I think they've won 17 of their last 20 games. Yeah. LeBron last night, if you want to throw this up, Scott, hit the 50,000 point mark, first player to ever do it. And for those just listening, this is especially crazy. If you look at who the next highest scorer of all time is, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's got 44,000. Then Karl Malone at 41, Kobe at 39, and MJ at 38. So LeBron really in this category is just completely in a ballpark of his own. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is as impressive as we're making it out to be, or is it just, yeah, okay, he's going to be hitting all of these records because he's playing for so long?
It's a mix of both. Incredibly impressive. Yeah. Like he's on the Mount Rushmore. Absolutely. Arguably the best player of all time. This number, I think, though, it's the same thing as inflation. Like the offensive firepower and the way the game has changed. It's like it was always bound. He was always bound to break it, especially if he were playing as long as he has. But nonetheless, you have to still go out and do it. And that's what's wildly impressive, is he has done it. And he broke that record, which that's an insane amount of points. 50,000.
I mean, how many seasons is that? 20, 21 seasons? It's just like, all right, that's I don't know if that's ever going to be touched. I mean, unless that guy from Twitter, Brian Johnson, who's doing all this longevity stuff, he breaks into to athletes and they're able to play until they're like 60, 70 years old. I don't think
he should be doing that. That's what he should be doing.
Have you seen that guy?
No, not him playing, but his methods being applied to athletes of the future. The don't die guy, you know
that guy creeps me out to no end, man.
His skin looks translucent. Wow, he doesn't look that healthy.
He puts his 18-year-old son's blood and plasma into his body. He's okay. So unless somebody does that, we probably won't see another player hit 50,000. The other thing I wanted to hit on the Lakers here is, Scott, will you throw up the stats since the break about the Lakers? Because the Lakers, they were known for not having good defense in the first half of this season. One of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. And AD, one of the best defensive players in the NBA, getting traded away for Luka, who is known to be an offensive savant, but not really known for defense. And somehow, since then, the Lakers have been essentially the best defensive basketball team in the entire NBA. Yeah. What do you make of this?
I mean, there always seems to be a turning point for LeBron's teams at the break. They just like kind of ease into the first part of the year, and then they pedal to the metal come the second half. And like I do think it's actually part and parcel of JJ Redick and him being. We're talking about Kyrie being cut from the old guard cloth. JJ is absolutely that dude, and can still. I mean, he's still pretty fresh off of his NBA career and can speak to these guys and connect with these guys at a very deep level and lead them clearly alongside LeBron. So, dude, something's in the water down here in LA, because they flipped that switch.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like defense in basketball, of course there's talent and skill involved, but I think effort plays a huge role in defense, especially defense in basketball. I mean, a lot of that is hustle and trying and playing hard. And when Luka went to the Lakers, it was like a revitalization for the Lakers and for LeBron. Like LeBron personally has been playing fantastic since Luka's gone there. They seem to be playing way more inspired than they were. Now, Luka hasn't necessarily been producing like crazy on offense just yet. I'm sure he will, but the combination of him and LeBron on offense is really, really good for Luka. Luka being able to kind of create activity and create plays and create shots for LeBron. Whereas previously LeBron, I mean, he's 40 years old. It's like he can have spurts of 4, 5, 6 minutes of dominance, but it's hard for him to maintain that. It's hard for him to be creating all these plays. So Luka being here is allowing them to play off ball a little bit. And then I think that's also allowing them all to put in a little bit more effort on defense.
Yeah. Defense, you're right. Defense is a decision you make every time you step onto the court. It's like, how much are you actually going to put forth? How much effort are you going to put into this? And each possession, you have to decide to do that each and every time. So like something changed here. And I was going to say, a lot of people are probably going to mention the fact that the reason they may be playing this well is because they realize with Luka on the court, they actually lost the defender because he's not known for being a great defenseman. So the other 4 had to pick it up and they've done a great job.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes it takes just knowing what you don't have to improve it. And Luka, sometimes he shows flashes. It's funny. He's so European in this way. Like offensive, just savant, so gifted. Defense, which is all effort. Like he'll show it sometimes, but not consistently. We've said Europe, they don't necessarily like to grind as much as Americans. And I think Luka's a great example of that. So that's what he got there. The Lakers are second in the West right now. They're legitimately a championship contending team. And I mean, you could make the argument that they're the second best team in the NBA right now behind the Celtics. So we'll see.
Well,
LeBron.
Actually, the Cavs, buddy.
Okay.
The Cavs are leading
Ohio.
the East.
Okay. True. This guy always interjects his Ohio and his rugby. We didn't bring up rugby in this episode, Scott.
Not yet. We're not done.
All right, let's see if you can do it.
He's almost one episode sober from his rugby talk.
Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm addicted to bringing up rugby. All right, sticking with basketball, let's hit on this. We touched on Rick Pitino a few shows ago. Now, of course, he had a lot of off the field or off the court issues, but he gave, and we focused on this a few episodes ago, he gave an incredible halftime speech for his team, St. John's, that was really applicable to life itself. And it was very, very impressive. Scott, we throw up this graphic right here of how often or how many times he has turned around a college basketball program. This is his 6th time. And sorry for those just listening. There's a lot of data up on here. You'll have to watch. But 6th time turning around a losing program within 2 years. And it's incredibly impressive. And I think like the elements of that speech that we saw a couple of weeks ago, that I mean, it makes this not surprising when you coach like that. What do you think?
Yeah, he clearly has a secret sauce, and he's clearly a leader of young men, specifically in the college realm, and proving it once and twice is one thing, and it's like, okay, crown that guy. He's really good. He's done it 6 times. That's incredibly difficult to do. Like, dude, kudos to him. He's definitely delivering a message that I think a lot of young athletes need to hear and haven't heard for quite some time. Just with the way things have gone, and we've touched on that before. And that speech hit the nail right on the head. It's just like, dude, you got to build. We were talking about even Mikey's injury, having that mental toughness to overcome serious adversity to your career, the moment, the game that you're in. So that message, the fact that he's like hammering it home, it's clearly showing in the wins and loss columns here.
Here's what's interesting. Okay, this is like, he's probably at the epitome at the top level of turning programs around. Okay. And he's probably one of the best coaches in doing that, maybe in all of sports. He's done it 6 times. Being that, it takes him 2 seasons to do it. So why in the NFL do we see these coaches giving 1 year? 1 year out. If you don't do it in 1 year, you're out. Look at this example. Even the best guys, he's done it 6 times. It takes him 2 years every time. Give a coach 2 years.
Is a very good point. If I'm an NFL coach and getting hired by a terrible franchise like the Browns, I'm going to show them Hey, I'm going to show them this as a defense that, hey, give me 2 years to turn this around.
Bring that into the meeting. Have a little pamphlet of that. Hand that out when you're interviewing.
Obviously, it's not going to work in Cleveland. I mean, you can't turn that around. But with some other franchises, maybe the Jets, maybe the Giants, Get that Rick Pitino graphic in there. You know where this needs to go, Rick Pitino? It needs to go to Georgetown. Okay, Georgetown is just they are living off the glory of the 80s. Somehow Georgetown still has this like prestigious basketball reputation, and we don't deserve it at all. And we're just resting on those laurels from now 3 decades ago. We need a turnaround coach. Let's get Rick Pitino.
I don't know if living off of. I think you guys are dying for sure off of the success of the past. Georgetown needs to figure it out because they have, like you said, the history and everything like that. And I agree with Mikey, at least 2 years, but I'll go back to the rule of 3. I think football coaches specifically, because it's such a larger sport, you're dealing with so many other factors than say strictly in basketball. They need at least 3 years. 1, to institute their own culture and their own strategy and their own approach in an organization. And then 2, to get it right on the field as well and get those coaches underneath them to also buy in and also do the same thing. So I completely agree with you. The fact that guys are getting axed after a year is just asinine.
Yeah. That was one of the things when I was interviewing Jack Del Rio for the ELF, because he had a little bit of success with the Raiders, and then they axed him like the middle of the next season. He was just like, they should have just let us sit there and continue on with the success. But so often, especially in the NFL, these owners are so impatient and they're so rich now that they can afford to just fire a guy and eat that 30, 40 million. Doesn't matter for them. Like, yeah. Having too rich of owners is actually could be looked at as a little bit of a detriment to the sport. Last thing on basketball, because we were hating on Georgetown. Georgetown did beat Villanova recently. Okay, we are 7th in the Big East, whereas Yale, good for you guys. You guys are first in the Ivy League.
Dude, we clinched the spot weeks ago, so can't wait for March, baby.
Way to go, nerd! It is March, Scott. Yeah. Come on, some Yale education. Look at a calendar.
We got to make our brackets.
We're going to make our brackets. And there's going to be a lot of pride right on that. Actually, yeah, we're going to be making our brackets here coming in the coming weeks. All right. There we have it. There is, look, I got through my flu game again. How'd I do? Did you tell that I was morbidly sick the entire time?
Oh, I could tell. Here's my concern. What is your immune system that you're always this sick? Are you
okay?
This is what happens when you live in Europe, like because Europeans have so much sick leave and holiday that the body just adapts. You know, I have unlimited sick days, paid sick days. So the body adapts, and my body is adapting. If I live in America, I don't get sick.
No, you know what I think it is? I think it's the bottle of hand sanitizer you have at your desk and the washing of your hands 75 times a day, and you should have desanitizing stations.
Yeah. Haven't you seen The Office? Dwight? Listen to Dwight. Bowl of dirt. Okay.
Well, the funny thing about that is Dwight is supposed to be German. But yeah, all right. Maybe I'll stop doing hand sanitizer 115 times a day. Maybe that'll
just have Laura sneeze on your toast.
There we go. That's what I'll do. That'll make me feel better. All right. There we go. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we will see you on Friday.